Right now, I want you to stop whatever else you are doing and give me your complete attention for the next 13 minutes, because what I am about to show you is going to fundamentally change the way you look at the world around you. Not the world in a movie, not the world in a book, the actual, physical, tangible world you woke up in this morning. The world where you made your coffee, checked your phone, scrolled through your newsfeed, and felt, perhaps for just a fraction of a second, that something was slightly off. That the story you are being told about reality does not quite match the reality you are actually experiencing. That there is a gap, thin but persistent, between what you are told is true and what you feel in your bones to be true. If you have ever felt that feeling, even once, then a movie released in 1999 was made specifically for you. It was dismissed by some critics as a stylish action film. It was celebrated by others as a philosophical masterpiece. But what it actually was, what it has always been, is a warning, a prediction, a mirror held up to a future that has now become our present. The movie is The Matrix. The directors are Lilly and Lana Wachowski. And what they encoded into every frame of that film reaches so far beyond science fiction that the word fiction no longer feels accurate. Welcome to the 9th reel, where today we are going deeper into this film than anyone has ever taken you before. We are pulling from historical context, philosophical foundations, deleted scenes, director interviews, academic research, and the most chilling real-world parallels that prove The Matrix was never about machines and humans. It was always about power, perception, and the invisible architecture of control that surrounds every one of us right now. To understand why The Matrix predicted the future with such uncanny accuracy, you cannot begin with the film. You must begin with the people who made it. Because every frame of this movie was shaped by personal experience, philosophical obsession, and a fierce, burning desire to say something true about the world they were living in. Lilly and Lana Wachowski grew up in Chicago in the 1960s and 1970s, the children of a nurse mother and a businessman father. From their earliest years, they were voracious readers, consuming comic books, science fiction novels, philosophy texts, and anime with equal enthusiasm. They were deeply influenced by the works of Philip K. Dick, the science fiction writer who spent his entire career asking one question above all others: what is real? Dick's novels, including Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, A Scanner Darkly, and Valis, all orbit around the terrifying possibility that the reality we perceive may be constructed, managed, or entirely fabricated by forces beyond our awareness. The Wachowskis absorbed this question into their bones and spent years trying to find the right vessel for it. Before The Matrix, the Wachowskis had directed one film, Bound, a taut, stylish neo-noir thriller released in 1996. It was critically praised but commercially modest, and it gave almost no indication of the philosophical ambition that was about to explode onto the screen 3 years later. During the development of The Matrix, they gave their cinematographer Bill Pope and their production designer Owen Patterson an extraordinary reading list that tells us everything about the intellectual DNA of the film. The list included Jean Baudrillard's Simulacra and Simulation, a copy of which appears in the film itself, hollowed out and used by Neo to hide his contraband software. It included Dylan Evans' Introducing Evolutionary Psychology, Kevin Kelly's Out of Control, Donna Haraway's A Cyborg Manifesto, and various texts on Gnostic philosophy and Buddhist metaphysics. This was not a team making an action movie. This was a team using the grammar of action cinema to smuggle an entire philosophical curriculum into mainstream consciousness. In interviews, Lana Wachowski has said that she wanted viewers to leave the cinema not knowing what to think, but unable to stop thinking. She succeeded beyond any reasonable measure. What makes the Wachowskis' vision even more remarkable and more personally resonant is the context of their own lives. Both Lilly and Lana are transgender women who spent decades living in identities that did not match their inner reality, presenting to the world as something they were not, existing in a kind of personal matrix before the word had that meaning for them. In interviews given years after the film's release, Both directors have spoken about The Matrix as being, among other things, a transgender allegory, a story about the agony of living in a false identity, the terrifying courage it takes to reject the constructed reality others impose upon you, and the liberation and pain of choosing to see yourself truly. When Neo takes the red pill, he is not just waking up to a technological conspiracy. He is choosing authentic reality over comfortable fiction. He is choosing to be who he actually is, even though that truth is harder and more dangerous than the lie. The Wachowskis knew this choice intimately. They lived it. And that personal truth is what gives The Matrix an emotional and philosophical depth that pure intellectual construction could never achieve. Now we enter the film itself, and I am going to ask you to do something that will make this analysis hit differently. I want you to watch every element of this story not as a plot about machines and humans in the future, but as a metaphor for something that is happening right now, in the present, in the world you actually live in. The story follows Thomas Anderson, a mild-mannered software programmer who works at a corporation called Metacortex by day and operates as a hacker called Neo by night. He is living a double life, feeling persistently that something is wrong with the world without being able to name what it is. He is contacted by a mysterious figure named Morpheus, who tells him that his feeling is correct. The world he sees, the offices, the streets, the sky, the food, the people, none of it is real. It is a simulation, a computer-generated dream world constructed by artificial intelligence to keep the human population docile, compliant, and unconscious while their biological energy is harvested to power the machine civilization that has conquered the Earth. The real world is a scorched ruin. The real human race lies comatose in pods, connected to the simulation through neural interfaces, living entire lives that are not lives at all, but managed hallucinations. Morpheus offers Neo a choice that has become perhaps the most culturally resonant image in all of cinema. In one hand, a blue pill. Take it, return to sleep, wake up in your bed, and believe whatever you choose to believe. In the other hand, a red pill. Take it, wake up, and see reality as it truly is, with no filters, no comfort, and no going back. Neo takes the red pill, and what he sees when he wakes up is simultaneously the most horrifying and the most liberating image in the film. He is suspended in a pod of viscous fluid, connected by cables to a vast machine infrastructure. He has never truly been awake before in his life. When Morpheus shows him the ruins of the actual world and speaks the line that defines the entire film, "Welcome to the desert of the real," it is not a science fiction moment. It is a philosophical gut punch that the Wachowskis borrowed directly from Jean Baudrillard, the French philosopher who argued that contemporary society has replaced reality with symbols and signs to such a degree that the distinction between real and simulated has collapsed. We no longer live in reality, Baudrillard argued. We live in a hyper-reality, a simulation of reality that is more real to us than reality itself. The Matrix did not invent this idea. It dramatized it with such visceral cinematic power that it forced millions of people to engage with a philosophical argument they would never have picked up in a book. The character of Morpheus deserves particular attention because he represents something that goes beyond the usual mentor archetype. He is not simply a wise teacher. He is a revolutionary who has dedicated his entire existence to a single belief: that human beings have the right to choose their own reality, even if that reality is terrible. His faith in Neo is absolute and unshakable, even when the evidence seems to contradict it. And this faith, this willingness to stake everything on the possibility that one ordinary person can wake up and change everything, is the emotional engine of the film. It is also a deliberate philosophical argument. The Wachowskis are saying that the first act of revolution is not violence or organization or strategy. It is consciousness. It is the willingness to ask, with genuine courage and genuine openness, whether what you are being shown is true. The first act of revolution is the red pill. Everything else follows from that single terrifying choice. This is the section where the film stops being a story and starts being a document. The Matrix was released in March 1999, and the world it depicted, a world of total information control, manufactured reality, behavioral harvesting, and the use of technology to keep human beings docile and compliant, was supposed to be a distant, speculative future. 25 years later, we are not heading toward that world. We are living in it. And the parallels are specific enough and detailed enough to be genuinely unsettling if you examine them with honest eyes. Let us begin with the most fundamental prediction, the idea that a vast, invisible system is harvesting human energy and attention for its own purposes, while the humans inside the system live in a managed, curated experience they mistake for reality. In 1999, this was metaphor. In 2024, it is the business model of every major technology company on Earth. The attention economy, a term that has become commonplace in discussions of social media and digital technology, is built on exactly the architecture the Matrix describes. Your attention is the energy being harvested. The curated feed of content you scroll through every day is the simulation. Not a conspiracy, not an evil plan, but an algorithmically generated environment specifically designed to keep you engaged, emotionally activated, and unable to look away. Former Google design ethicist Tristan Harris, who left the company to found the Center for Humane Technology, has said in multiple interviews, and in the Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, that the goal of social media platforms is not to serve you, but to capture as much of your attention and time as possible, because your attention is the product being sold to advertisers. He describes the design philosophy of these platforms as a race to the bottom of the brainstem, targeting the oldest, most primitive parts of your psychology: fear, outrage, envy, desire, because those emotions generate the most engagement. This is not metaphorically similar to the Matrix. This is the Matrix with better user interface design. The simulation in the film is maintained by agents, programs that look and behave like humans, designed to police the boundaries of acceptable thought and eliminate anything that threatens the stability of the system. In our world, the equivalent function is performed partly by algorithms and partly by the social dynamics of online communities, where deviation from accepted narratives is met with swift, coordinated punishment. The phenomenon of social media pile-ons, cancel culture, and algorithmic demotion of dissenting content creates a digital environment in which the Overton window, the range of ideas considered acceptable for public discussion, is continuously narrowed without any formal censorship. You are technically free to say anything, but if what you say falls outside the managed boundaries of acceptable discourse, the system ensures that almost no one hears it. This is not the jackbooted totalitarianism of George Orwell's 1984. It is something more subtle, more efficient, and in some ways more complete. It is the soft totalitarianism of the Matrix, enforced not by violence, but by social consequence and algorithmic invisibility. The film also predicted the rise of artificial intelligence as a dominant force shaping human experience, with a specificity that becomes more striking with every passing year. In The Matrix, the machines did not conquer humanity through military force alone. They conquered through dependency. Humans built the machines, needed the machines, trusted the machines, and by the time they understood what the machines had become, the relationship of dependency had become so total that resistance was almost impossible. Today, the integration of artificial intelligence into every layer of daily life, healthcare decisions, financial approvals, legal judgments, content recommendations, hiring processes, and social credit assessments has created a dependency that most people feel, but few examine. We do not know how the algorithms that shape our lives make their decisions, because they are proprietary. We cannot appeal their verdicts, because there is no human to appeal to. We trust them, because we have no practical alternative. The machines are not conquering us with lasers and tentacles. They are absorbing us through utility and convenience, one app update at a time. The Wachowskis did not arrive at the ideas in The Matrix independently. They were building on a tradition of philosophical thought that stretches back to ancient Greece, runs through Enlightenment rationalism, and explodes into urgent contemporary relevance in the postmodern philosophy of the late 20th century. Understanding these philosophical foundations does not just deepen your appreciation of the film. It reveals that the questions The Matrix asks are not science fiction questions. They are the oldest and most fundamental questions in human intellectual history. The question at the center of the film, how do you know that what you perceive as reality is actually real, is precisely the question Plato addressed in his Allegory of the Cave, written approximately 2,400 years ago. In Plato's allegory, a group of prisoners have spent their entire lives chained in a cave, facing a wall. Behind them is a fire, and between the fire and the prisoners, people carry objects whose shadows are projected onto the wall. The prisoners have never seen the actual objects, only the shadows. For them, the shadows are reality. They have developed an entire system of knowledge, language, prediction, expertise, based on interpreting shadows. When one prisoner is freed and turns to see the fire and the objects and eventually the sunlight outside the cave, the experience is disorienting and painful. And when he returns to tell the others what he has seen, they do not thank him. They think he is insane. They prefer the shadows they know to the sunlight they cannot yet imagine. This allegory maps onto the Matrix with almost perfect precision. The simulation is the cave. Neo is the freed prisoner. Morpheus is the philosopher who frees him. And the rejection of the awakened person by those still inside the simulation is dramatized in the film through the character of Cypher, who knows the truth and chooses the simulation anyway, because the steak tastes real. And the Matrix is more comfortable than the desert of the real. Jean Baudrillard's influence on the film goes even deeper than Plato's, and it is more uncomfortable because Baudrillard's analysis does not offer the consolation of a real world waiting outside the cave. For Baudrillard, we have already moved so far into simulation that the original reality the simulation was based on no longer exists. We are not watching shadows of real objects. We have forgotten that there were ever real objects. We are watching shadows of shadows of shadows. His concept of hyperreality, a state in which simulations become more real to us than reality, describes the media landscape of the late 20th and early 21st century with devastating precision. The news we consume is a simulation of events. The events themselves are shaped by the expectation of coverage. The coverage is shaped by the platforms that distribute it, which are shaped by the advertisers that fund them, which are shaped by the consumer desires that the platforms themselves helped manufacture. Reality and its representation have collapsed into each other. There is no ground zero anymore. There is no stable truth beneath the layers of representation. Baudrillard thought this made resistance impossible. The Wachowskis thought it made resistance urgent. That tension is the philosophical heartbeat of the film. The online community that has grown around The Matrix over the past 25 years is one of the most intellectually rich fan ecosystems in cinema history. Film theory channels, Reddit forums, academic papers, and independent researchers have been excavating this film for decades, and some of their findings reveal dimensions of the work that the casual viewer would never suspect. The most widely discussed theory, and the one that the directors themselves have come closest to explicitly confirming, is that the Wachowskis embedded a complete transgender allegory into the architecture of the film. This theory was circulating in online communities for years before Lilly Wachowski confirmed it in a 2020 interview with Netflix Film Club, stating clearly that The Matrix was born out of a trans experience, and that the film's central narrative, a person living in a false identity imposed by an oppressive system, discovering their true self at enormous personal cost and risk, directly parallels the transgender experience. The red pill, she confirmed, was originally written as a direct metaphor for estrogen, the hormone that begins the transition process. Trinity, the character who guides Neo out of his false life, was intended to embody the feminine principle that Neo must reconnect with to become fully himself. Understanding this layer of the film transforms many of its details. The name Thomas Anderson, Son of Man, in its etymological components, represents the false identity. Neo is the true self, the new identity, the authentic person who emerges when the constructed identity is shed. Agent Smith's obsessive, almost personal hatred of Neo reads differently through this lens. He is the system's immune response to a person who refuses to be what the system needs them to be. His disgust is not just ideological. It is the visceral revulsion that systems of power feel toward those who expose the constructedness of the identities they enforce. And the machines themselves, cold, logical, utilitarian, unable to understand why anyone would choose a painful truth over a comfortable fiction, represent the logic of normative society, which cannot comprehend why anyone would reject the perfectly comfortable simulation of a life they have been assigned. The second major theoretical framework that the online community has applied to the Matrix, with compelling results, is Marxist economic analysis. Under this reading, the machines harvesting human biological energy are not primarily a metaphor for technology. They are a metaphor for capitalism. The humans in the pods are the proletariat, their life energy, their labor, their attention, their creativity, their time, extracted to power a system from which they derive no benefit, in conditions they did not choose, for purposes they do not understand. The Matrix itself is ideology, the set of beliefs, values, and assumptions that a ruling class propagates through culture, media, and education, to make the exploited class accept their exploitation as natural, inevitable, and even desirable. The agent programs are the ideological state apparatus, institutions, media, social norms that maintain the system not through force alone, but through the manufactured consent of those being exploited. Under this reading, waking up is not just a personal act, it is a political act. And the film is not just a story about one man's liberation. It is a call to collective consciousness. The Matrix did not just predict the future in terms of its ideas, it predicted the future of cinema itself. And the technical and artistic innovations it introduced have so thoroughly transformed the visual language of film that we now live in their legacy without even recognizing it. The film introduced mainstream audiences to Hong Kong action choreography at a scale and quality that had never been seen in American studio filmmaking. The Wachowskis hired Yuen Wu-ping, the legendary Hong Kong action choreographer behind films like Drunken Master and Iron Monkey, to design every fight sequence in the film. They then insisted that their lead actors spend 4 months in intensive martial arts training before a single frame was shot, so that the movements would be authentic and the camera could stay closer, longer, and more intimately engaged with the human body in motion. The result was a visual vocabulary of action that was simultaneously more realistic and more balletic than anything Hollywood had produced, and it changed the way action cinema looks to this day. The bullet time effect, the now iconic sequence in which time slows to a near standstill while the camera appears to move freely through space, was the result of a collaboration between the Wachowskis and visual effects supervisor John Gaita that took 2 years of development. The technique involved arranging up to 120 still cameras in precise geometric configurations around the action, triggering them in rapid sequence, and then using computer interpolation to fill the gaps between frames, creating the illusion of a camera moving through a frozen moment. The effect won the Academy Award for Visual Effects in 2000 and has since been used, imitated, parodied, and referenced in hundreds of films, television shows, commercials, and music videos. But what is often forgotten about bullet time is that it was not designed purely as a spectacle. It was designed as a visual representation of a philosophical idea. The idea that when you are truly awake, when you have freed your mind from the constraints of the simulation, you perceive reality differently. You see things others cannot see. You move through time and space with a freedom that the sleeping cannot access. The visual style was an argument. The cinematography of Bill Pope deserves particular analysis, because the color grading choices the Wachowskis made with Pope are among the most deliberate and sophisticated uses of color as narrative language in modern cinema. The Matrix, the simulation, is rendered in a greenish, slightly nauseating tint, that Pope achieved through filming in naturally desaturated environments and through chemical processing of the film stock. This green is not incidental or aesthetic. It is the color of phosphor on old computer monitors, the color of digital information, the color of the cage. The real world, the Nebuchadnezzar, the free human world, is rendered in cold blues, desaturated and harsh, uncomfortable to look at for extended periods. This was a deliberate choice. The real world is not beautiful. It is not comfortable. It does not reward you for choosing it. But it is real. And reality, the Wachowskis insist, is always worth the cost of seeing it clearly, however ugly that clarity may be. Let us bring everything together now and look at the real world through the specific lens that the Matrix provides, because the parallels are not vague or general. They are specific, documented, and in some cases so precise that they function less like analogies and more like descriptions. The first and most fundamental parallel is the manufactured consent of the information environment. In the film, the Matrix is not experienced as a prison because it does not feel like one. It is designed to feel like ordinary life. The commute, the apartment, the restaurant, the news, the entertainment, the social interaction. The system's genius is not its capacity for violence. It is its capacity for mimicry. It reproduces reality so faithfully that the people inside it have no intuitive reason to doubt it. Our contemporary information environment operates on an identical principle. According to research from the MIT Media Lab published in the journal Science, false news spreads 6 times faster on social media platforms than true news, and it reaches far more people. The reason is not that people prefer falsehood. It is that falsehood is optimized for engagement, while truth is optimized for accuracy. The simulation is better designed than reality. It is more stimulating, more emotionally activating, more entertaining, and more addictive. And so people stay inside it, not because they are forced to, but because it has been made more appealing than the alternative. The second parallel is the role of the agents, the system's immune response to truth-telling. In the film, agents are programs that look exactly like humans but exist solely to maintain the integrity of the simulation, eliminating anyone who threatens to wake others up. In our world, the equivalent function is performed by a combination of algorithmic suppression, social ostracism, and institutional delegitimization. Whistleblowers like Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, and Julian Assange, people who revealed verifiable truths about the hidden operations of powerful systems, were not rewarded for their courage. They were hunted, imprisoned, exiled, and destroyed. The message to everyone watching was clear. This is what happens to people who expose the simulation. This is what happens to those who take the red pill and try to offer it to others. The agents do not need to be conscious or coordinated. They just need to be systematic, and the systems of institutional power are exactly that. The third, and perhaps most chilling parallel, concerns the harvesting of human potential. In the film, the tragedy is not simply that humans are enslaved. It is that the full potential of the human mind and body, creative, intellectual, spiritual, is being channeled entirely into powering a system that serves no human interest. The humans in the pods are not suffering in the conventional sense. They are dreaming comfortable dreams while their energy is extracted. The real suffering is the waste.
The waste of lives that could have been lived, of minds that could have thought freely, of connections that could have been genuine. This is the Matrix's deepest indictment, and it resonates with something that many people in the contemporary world feel without being able to articulate: the sense that enormous amounts of human intelligence,
creativity, and passion are being funneled into systems of production and consumption that do not serve genuine human flourishing. The sense that we are generating enormous wealth and power for structures that are fundamentally indifferent to our well-being. The sense that the life we are living is not quite the life we were meant to live. That there is something more real, somewhere, that we cannot quite reach. The cultural impact of The Matrix extends far beyond cinema fandom, and understanding its global reach reveals something important about the universal human hunger for the questions it asks. In philosophy departments across the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia, the matrix has been used as a teaching tool for introducing students to epistemology, the branch of philosophy concerned with the nature and limits of knowledge, because it dramatizes abstract philosophical problems with a clarity and visceral impact that traditional texts struggle to match. The simulation hypothesis, the philosophical proposition that our reality may itself be a form of computational simulation, was largely a fringe academic idea before The Matrix. After the film, it entered mainstream discourse and has since been argued seriously by philosophers, including Nick Bostrom, and physicists at several major research institutions. Elon Musk famously stated in a public discussion that the probability that we are living in base reality is 1 in billions. Whether that specific claim is valid is less important than the fact that The Matrix created the cultural conditions in which such a claim could be made and taken seriously in mainstream discourse. In the world of politics and social activism, the metaphor of the red pill has been adopted with such frequency and across such a wide ideological spectrum that it has become one of the defining cultural metaphors of the 21st century. Activists from feminist movements, civil rights organizations, libertarian groups, and dozens of other political traditions all use the language of waking up, of seeing through the simulation, of taking the red pill. This cross-ideological adoption of the same metaphor is both a testament to the film's philosophical power and a reminder that the hunger for authentic reality, the desire to see clearly through whatever system of managed perception surrounds you, is not a politically partisan impulse. It is a human one. Every ideology believes it has access to truth that others cannot see. Every movement believes it is offering a red pill of some kind. The Matrix does not adjudicate between these claims. It simply says that the act of questioning the simulation is always necessary, and that the greatest danger is always comfort, not conflict. In Japan, South Korea, and across East Asia, The Matrix connected with audiences through its Buddhist philosophical dimensions in ways that Western critics initially underestimated. The Buddhist concept of Maya, the veil of illusion that prevents beings from perceiving ultimate reality, maps directly onto the film's central metaphor. The idea that suffering arises from attachment to a reality that is not ultimately real, and that liberation comes through the direct perception of things as they actually are, rather than as desire and conditioning make them appear. This is not a metaphor in Buddhist philosophy. It is a precise description of the path to enlightenment. Neo's journey from Thomas Anderson to the One mirrors the Buddhist concept of awakening, the transition from ordinary conditioned consciousness to a perception of reality unclouded by simulation. This is why The Matrix resonated so powerfully across cultures that had no particular investment in Western science fiction traditions. It was not telling an American story, it was telling a human story in the language of an American genre, and that combination proved to be the most effective delivery mechanism for these ideas that cinema has ever produced. We have traveled far together in this analysis. We have walked through the intellectual biographies of two filmmakers who used cinema as a philosophical weapon. We have moved through the corridors of The Matrix and felt the simulated warmth of its managed reality. We have held the film's predictions against the present moment and found them disturbingly accurate. We have heard the philosophers whose ideas the Wachowskis built upon, and we have heard the voices of the people who have been living the film's questions long before and long after its release. And now we arrive at the question the film ultimately refuses to answer for us. The question it deliberately places in our hands rather than resolving: which pill did you choose? The film's final scene is one of the most powerful endings in modern cinema. Neo, having fully awakened to his own nature and the nature of the system, stands in a phone booth and delivers a monologue that functions as a direct address to the audience. He says he is going to show people a world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries, a world where anything is possible. He hangs up. He walks into the street, he puts on his sunglasses, he looks up at the sky, and he flies. This ending is not triumphalist. It is not a simple victory. It is an invitation. It is the Wachowskis saying directly to the audience, "We have shown you the cage. We have shown you the door. What you do next is entirely up to you. That invitation has been accepted by millions of people in millions of different ways in the 25 years since the film's release. And the ongoing, unresolved nature of that conversation is perhaps the clearest evidence that The Matrix did not just predict the future, it helped shape it. The most honest and the most important thing I can tell you about The Matrix, after everything we have examined today, is this. The film is not about whether the world is literally a computer simulation. It is about the gap between what we are told reality is and what we actually experience reality to be. It is about the systems of representation, ideology, commerce, and technology that mediate our experience of the world to such a degree that unmediated experience has become almost impossible.
It is about the courage it takes to ask uncomfortable questions about the structures that organize your life and the price that is always demanded from those who ask those questions sincerely. These are not science fiction concerns. They are the most urgent human concerns of this moment. The machines in the film are a metaphor for every system of power that has ever organized human life for its own purposes, while presenting itself as a neutral, inevitable, and benevolent reality.
And the red pill is a metaphor for every moment of genuine, honest, clear-eyed seeing that has ever allowed a human being to step outside the story they were told and begin to write their own. If this analysis has done what I intended it to do, you are sitting with something uncomfortable right now. A question that does not have a clean answer. A feeling that the film you thought you had already understood has revealed a new room you never knew existed. That feeling is the point. That feeling is what the Wachowskis were trying to create. That discomfort is the edge of the simulation, the place where the managed reality runs out and the real world begins to bleed through. The question is what you choose to do with it. Do you take the blue pill, close this video, go back to the feed, let the algorithm tell you what to watch next, and let the feeling fade until next time? Or do you take the red pill, sit with the discomfort, follow the question wherever it leads, and start paying attention to the gap between what you are told and what you know to be true? Subscribe to the 9th Reel, because this is what we do here. We do not summarize movies. We do not review performances or rank directors. We go deep. We go into the ideas, the philosophy, the history, the real-world parallels, and the questions that great cinema refuses to let go of. Next week, we are going inside one of the most disturbing and misunderstood films ever made. A film that asked whether free will exists and whether the future can be changed. A film that was laughed off as science fiction and has since been analyzed by neuroscientists, philosophers, and physicists as one of the most accurate representations of human consciousness ever committed to screen. You will not want to miss it. Drop a comment below with your answer to this question. Are you living in the Matrix right now? And if so, what is your red pill? Share this video with one person who needs to wake up. And remember what Morpheus said, all he is offering is the truth, nothing more. This is the 9th Reel. Stay awake, stay curious, and keep watching.